Hello, I'm Gary Russell, and welcome to episode 4 of Doctor Who, The Firemaker. We're sitting here with Carole Ford and William Russell, who played Susan and Ian respectively, and the story's director, Waris Hussein. What do you remember, having gone through the whole thing of the first episode and the pilot and the reshoots and everything, Waris? What were your views on these subsequent 3 episodes set in primeval times?
Well, let me just say something, that when I was given the scripts of these fire seekers, I was very worried. I mean, how do we know how these people behaved, and how do we deal with them without making it totally comic and unrealistic and unbelievable? So the only way to approach it was to try and say, and play it for genuine. You know, the fact is, these are people, and there was a film subsequently made way after this, which was dealing in a much more expensive fashion with the same theme, which is people surviving at a certain time in their lives when they were looking for fire. So when I dealt with the actors, I said, you've got to do this for real. We can't send it up because then it won't be in any way have any impact. And I insisted on them looking ghastly and having bad teeth. and I think the fact is that the actors sort of took it on themselves. I think the biggest, the joke we had at the time when I was auditioning was we couldn't afford too much hair. And I would ask actors if they were hairy. Would they open up their shirts to show me their chests? So that was a bit of a comedy element in this. But I think we played it very much for real in order to make people sort of create the world that we had. It wasn't easy, actually, in all fairness.
And had you worked with actors like Derek Newark and Jeremy Young and everyone before, or were they all new to you?
They were all new to me, and I was amazed that they actually accepted the roles. I mean, they were very good actors, so why would they do this? But they actually did it, I think, because I said to them, look, we're dealing with something so unusual that the only way we can do this is to make it suspenseful enough and get kids to be involved. And we are, after all, dealing with a story about a quest for fire, which is what that film that later followed us was made. It's about people who survived in an earlier time. And we were educating kids who these series was made for in the beginning.
Yes, I agree. I think we were educating kids. But it's funny, the comic element, of course, came out in the rehearsals, which were tumultuous. Yeah. But Waris managed to control everything in the end.
Sometimes.
But the great thing was we got it all out of our system then.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Jeremy and Derek were wonderful. Mm. They were, and Alicia and that marvellous Eileen Way, you know, they were really superb, and the only thing if I'm critical today about some of the things, is that I just felt myself that it would have been better if we could have done with less dialogue, because the actual dialogue leads you to today's customs and mores, and so that this business of jealousy between them. We don't know whether cavemen felt jealous after all, you know, but it was a good dramatic element to introduce into the story. But if it could have been done with less chat, I think I would have felt it was more authentic. But I think it was actually what Waris was saying, that it actually achieved that because of the belief we all had. And, as I say, we got rid of the laughs in the rehearsal.
Is that belief sometimes a little tricky to maintain when you're trying to pretend this is sort of primeval Earth, and in fact it's a little studio in Lime Grove? Or did you find that on Doctor Who, the sets and the costumes and everything was so good that you were able to go, right, play this straight down the line? Or were there ever moments you thought, if I go 2 inches too far, I'm actually going to walk off this set?
I honestly don't think that the platform ever disturbs an actor.
Exactly.
I mean, I think, given a sheet, and I was with the company, we used to arrive in a church hall and we used to pin down the stage cloth. Yeah. That was where we were. And on that we acted. So I don't think there was any feeling of that, although it was incredibly cramped in Studio D. But Waris will...
I was going to say, if it didn't affect the actors, how much did it affect you as a director, Waris?
Well, obviously it affected me in the sense that we were working with very, very limited facilities. And at the same time, pictorially, I was trying to make images that would be consistent with the story. I mean, you've got people in skins with a look, and you've got to try and convince everybody that this works. I mean, as a director, I would try and get some kind of sense of an atmosphere, and that can only be created via me to conveying it to the actors themselves. There was a degree of suspense within this story, actually.
Oh,
if you look
yes.
at it. It's about question of whether people will survive or not. And underlying it, there's a sort of air of brutality and danger, which probably helped it, didn't it?
Oh,
I mean,
certainly.
there was a sense of, are these people actually going to get killed by these primitives? And that suspense, anyway. My biggest problem, and I do agree with Bill on this, is that I wish we'd had less dialogue, but the danger of that is that we'd have ugh and og and
that's right,
and monosyllabic sounds that would have also tipped it into ridicule. So we had to balance it, didn't we?
Yes, indeed.
But looking at some of the images...
But the images are wonderful, aren't they?
And I'm actually quite pleased with what I see.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you should
The
be.
lighting's good on
I
this,
think you
isn't it?
should be,
And actually looking at it again also from the point of view of a director, I think through the time from the pilot and the first episode, just the way I shot this is far more dramatic and more mature and much more sure of itself than when I started off.
Yeah.
And Carole, were you, I mean, okay, this is only 4 weeks in or 4 episodes in, but were you as a group of actors more comfortable now? Had you'd gone past that sort of first night nerves thing?
I think we were all working together quite well by this stage. I think we were trusting each other. There's always that first moment, am I going to be able to get on with this person? Are we going to gel together? And, I think as a team, we all got on terribly well. And I think
that happened very quickly, didn't it? Very quickly with us.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. But talking about the language aspect, it amazed me at the time and does now when I see all the various episodes. How on earth did we always communicate with all the aliens wherever we went? It's a funny thing. I noticed in one of the newest ones, and they've actually addressed this. They say that there's something in the TARDIS which gets into your head and enables you to speak the language of wherever you're going, which is a brilliant concept.
Yes,
Great.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, we couldn't have had alien dialogue with subtitles in those days, apart from the fact they were making it for children who wouldn't probably have to follow the text.
So they suspended disbelief
we just
anyway.
have to suspend belief. And I personally think that interesting enough, not that I'd want to repeat this whole business of going back to cavemen times too often, but the fact is, when you look at some of it, we are actually telling people certain aspects of human existence, how to create fire by rubbing two sticks together, and that sort of thing, which is how people started. So there was an element intentionally in these stories of educating the kids. I'm not sure so much about the Dalek situation, but certainly when my episodes are all to do with the past. This was way back, and then much later I did one on Marco Polo, where we actually educated kids in what it actually meant to go from Venice across the Gobi Desert to end up in the court of the Kublai Khan in Peking. So you are teaching people,
Can I take you briefly, Waris, right back to the beginning?
Yeah.
Verity said earlier, when we were looking at episode 1, that she was very hands-on with the casting of the two Bills and Jackie Hill.
Yes.
But she said you had a lot more to do with the casting of Carole. How did that come about? How did you find Carole Ann Ford?
Well, actually, I didn't have the ultimate decision, but what happened was that I used to watch a lot of the dramas being lined up in those days. There were rooms at the viewing rooms that you could watch down into the studio with monitors up there, and I remember going to watch a particular show being lined up. I believe it was a suspense in a series called Suspense, and I was looking at the monitors, and there was Carole Ann. And we were trying to find Susan. And I saw her there and went up to the offices where we were. And I said to Verity, I think you should come down and have a look at this girl, because I think she might well be a possible Susan. So she came and looked at the monitor, and that's exactly how it happened. We then asked her to come in and see us, of course, and Verity then tells us about the Scream thing. But the fact is, we'd already seen her. I mean, we had been thinking of other actresses too, but that was what I think triggered it off. And that's how Carole Ann came into the picture.
And were you aware of that, or was this complete new information to you?
Not at the time. No, I didn't know at the time. This isn't new information, but I've been told since. But talk about the fickle finger of fate. But I seem to remember I did a lot of screaming in that particular one anyway, so had you lingered a little longer, you wouldn't have had to ask me to scream, you'd have seen it.
Carole, what do you remember specifically about this? The reason I ask you this is you once said in an interview about the animal skins being full of insects and things.
I got bitten to death. Yeah, I did. Did you not? Russ, you didn't?
No,
I don't know if you remember, but there was something nasty on the particular skin that it must have been Jeremy's, because he was the one that I was closest to, because I had to leap upon him to try and stop him from battering my grandpa to death. And I was bitten from head to toe. But a nice aspect of it is that also, I don't know if you remember this, among the foliage there was a little lizard. The poor little thing was all drying out, and I took it into my dressing room and put it in my, do you not remember, my wash basin. And made it, because it was drying out, and I took it home and I kept it for months.
Oh, really? That's something we didn't know about.
And here we see them finally discovering fire.
Yes.
Having been given it by the doctor.
Exactly.
Big his arms are, aren't they? Huge. Good casting.
How difficult was it, again on a technical level, to actually have naked flame in a studio in those days?
Well, we
had fire people.
Well,
and everyone
safety
around.
and all that. We had the firemen standing by, and yes, that was. Now, when you look at this, the fight itself was filmed separately. This was not done in the studio.
Ealing,
this was done filmed at Ealing Studios.
Yeah.
So interesting enough, we had to marry what this was shot prior to the entire episode, some weeks before. So all this then had to be tied in with what we have in the studio. And also, interesting enough, it was it had to be cued in immediately with the live studio recording. So all of this was fairly technical at the time, you know. And things like Doctor Who watching.
But it's why it was such a good fight that it was filmed.
But it was filmed. We could never have done.
We could
never have controlled this on four cameras.
No, exactly.
This was all. But interesting enough, it was, I think, even prior to having rehearsed the rest of the show.
Yeah.
So what with you standing around reacting, had to be all done
That's
without knowing what you'd
you
been
got-
doing prior to this in terms of the script action. But it does work.
Oh,
and
it does
it
work.
gives it a kind of impetus. It's quite savage,
It
actually.
is very savage.
I mean, when you
yeah,
think
just
about
thinking.
it is quite frightening for kids of between 8 and 12 or whatever the age group was that we were. Now, this business of crushing his skull. Now, that is a very seminal bit of killing because I wanted to use a sound effect. When his skull is cracked open, I mean, this is quite savage if you look at it. I wanted to put a sound effect of the crunching skull, and we actually had one created by bringing down something hard onto a cabbage.
Or a cabbage. It was a
And
cabbage.
Verity Lambert said to me, "You cannot use that sound." And I said, why not? And she says, because it's just going too far. And we had a big argument in the control room where she says, you cannot use that sound. And I said, yes, I will. No, you won't. Yes, I will. And finally I said, right, I'm quitting. I'm leaving the
Pushing over
show.
a cabbage.
I got very emotional, very dramatic. I mean, I could hardly have said, I said I was leaving the show. I could hardly do that because I'm under contract to leave. However, I had to accept the fact that the crunch never happened. But even if you look at it now, it's pretty grim.
Oh, yes, it certainly is.
Bringing a huge
It certainly is.
stone down on someone's...
And Jackie's reaction is wonderful. Wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah.
What also I think is interesting, looking at it there, which you wouldn't get if you were doing that today, is that was Derek and Jeremy doing the fight.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
There were no
Nowadays
doubles.
it would be stunt doubles.
Yeah,
and
That's right.
Carole
There's
went to
no-
mask.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There were no doubles in those days.
And that really added to the realism of it, because you could get
Yeah.
all those close-ups of the faces and everything.
Yeah.
I decided after this I was an action director. But I have to say, looking at
It
these,
looks good, doesn't it?
These images,
Waris?
they really are
Yeah.
not bad,
Yeah.
considering the limits of what we had to deal with and how we actually had to cope with the whole thing. It makes me want to go and see the whole lot again. Cave of Skulls, I think we had one episode called A Cave of Skulls.
Yes, that's right.
How you were saying earlier on that you were very dubious about doing an episode with cavemen.
Yes.
What made you come back then to do Marco Polo a few months later? Was it a case of, well, look, I'll do it because it's another historical story rather than a science fiction one?
yes.
Did you feel confident with the scripts in that one?
Yes, I was actually. John Lucarotti, who wrote the scripts, wrote some very, very good stuff. And he made it into an adventure as well. And there was a villain in that as well. You know, we always had the villains and the heroes. But the fact was he wrote a very good set of scripts. And also, actually, it was a question of choice because I was contracted to do 2 lots. So I was very relieved when I got those scripts because for once I thought, great, I can now start working on something that I've got no problems with. I mean, to be honest, this was for me initially a baptism of fire when I first got the first script saying, how do I deal with all these people in caves? And how am I going to direct them not to sound comic or whatever?
Yeah.
So, no, it was fine. Good for me anyway. And by this time, of course, I'd gone, as everyone else, into the rhythm of it. And I knew everybody, so it was not a big problem. I knew I was going to do it, and it was simply a question of getting on with it and getting it right.
Now, this is also one of those rare moments on Doctor Who, and again, this might be because it's the first story. They really dirtied you all down as actors, didn't they? And let you really sort of get into the spirit
lovely.
of everything. Is that quite fun as an actor to be able to
Oh, yeah.
effectively play like that?
Oh, well, I was a stickler for that. I didn't, no cosmetics here. No lipstick or eyeliner. It was, you can get on with the grit and grease, don't you think? I mean,
That's quite right.
That was the whole point of it, wasn't
right.
it? If everyone else is going to be walking around in skins, these people had to look as if they hadn't been, washed for weeks.
Very smelly.
There was a rumour going around at one point, and maybe one of you can confirm or deny it, that one of the extras actually walked off because she wasn't prepared to be knocked down and made dirty
didn't
and
want her
everything.
teeth black.
Didn't want her teeth. Exactly. It was the teeth that did it, apparently.
Well, that's up to her. It's her choice, isn't it? But I think most of them, and when you give
Lost
credit,
her chance of being part
lost
of
her
the
chance,
history.
Yes.
How do you go about? Do you have a great deal of input into the casting of all the extras and everything, or are they just there?
No extras.
on the
I
day?
don't really. I leave that to the assistant. But no, obviously, I said that I needed a certain look. So if they could find hairy guys, cast hairy guys, and girls that didn't look as if they just stepped out of a magazine cover. I needed faces. You've got to get certain looks and. But of course, I was instrumental in casting Derek and Jeremy. They were my choice after we'd met. We had good laughs when they first came in and saw me. I said, "Listen, have you got a hairy chest, by the way?" Nothing to do with acting.
I'm sure if they were actors, they would say, no, I can grow one.
Do you think this was a good story to kick Doctor Who off, or did you think the better ones came later? Or is this a sort of
That's a very
favourite
difficult
one for
question,
stuff?
isn't
Yes, I think it's a.
I think it was. I think it was a good one because I think it began. I think it again gave us space and time to establish relationships, to start that process, which we carried on in the Dalek one that follows. We had a longer scene. I think I remember in the TARDIS when we actually did, start to define things and create more of a reality for ourselves.
Yes. I think also possibly if you'd started off with the Daleks, it might have been more difficult to get into it because you're now dealing with these strange creatures that you're more fascinated by the mechanics than by the human elements. This is very human.
Oh, very.
Yes, the first to establish us all as characters too.
I think once, in a way, this helped to ease you into the Dalek story, really, don't you think?
I think so, yeah. I think so, yeah.
Was there ever a point where you looked at this and thought, this is going to run and run and run, or did you think, take it week by week and see what happens?
I think when you're an actor, you always take it week by week. I don't think you dare to hope it can go on and on and on. Except Bill did, from the very beginning. Bill had absolute faith and confidence in it. Yeah.
And did he kind of project that into the rest of you as well, do you think?
Oh, yes, yeah, definitely.
What do you think gave him that confidence? Why do you think he believed in the show so much?
I don't really know. He was just so in love with the character, I think. His character. I don't really know. Do you, Russ?
No, I think that it was part of his character, really, that he, embraced the job that he was doing each time with that kind of commitment. And he really was a believer. And so this really did appeal to him in lots of ways. I think he found in it a satisfaction because he started, Bill, as an actor, as a farce actor. He was a jokey man, and he always liked to have a little bit of comedy and bring in a bit of comedy, even when he was thinking. But he also had the other side, which was, like in the Brighton Rock film, that he was a razor man too.
I think he was getting a bit fed up with being typecast too, as those crusty old sergeants and things.
Yes.
And this was such a radical development for him as an actor.
That's right.
And so here we are, we're slowly but surely drawing to a close of what is the first Doctor Who story ever, the one that started it and kept it all going. So what do you feel looking at it now, all these years later? Is it something you're proud to have been involved with?
Oh, very much so.
Absolutely. Oh, gosh, yes.
Yeah. I mean, what was wonderful about this scene was that it keeps the argument, it keeps the conflict going, and that is a wonderful springboard.
And that's exactly for the next lot.
For the next lot, this is it. We're not chums, are we?
You're still enemies. You're still at odds with each other. I mean, honestly, looking at it again, and I have to say, I'm extremely impressed, not just by what I did, but what the whole thing came together. And I'm really very happy seeing it, I think. And when you say, what do I feel? Well, I feel very proud. I feel very happy to have been involved, quite frankly. It's something that was at the initial beginning of my life as a director, and I'm very happy to have been a part of it.
And so here we are, doing for the first time the kind of leading into the next story, the thing that Doctor Who did very much for its first few years. And so this will take us into the Dead Planet.
Into the danger zone.
At which point it all took off in a much bigger way than anyone could ever have expected. Well, thank you very much for joining us for this, and I'm glad you enjoyed it after all these years.
Oh, yes, indeed.
Thank you.